are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. Right, who was it last week who said the wheels were falling off? Absolute clown, whoever it was. But anyway, we need to get tonight's show done nice and quickly because I need to finish off my Russian visa application ahead of the 2022 Champions League final in St. Petersburg, where West Ham are definitely going to be playing. I've done the We're All Going on a European tour as an intro before. I did want to do it again, but not tonight because I like to stay original here on the We Are West Ham podcast. Lads, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards, James Jones, the trio back together for another week. Real Madrid, Roma and Bayern Munich I'd like in the group stage. James, any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I'll take anyone. Yeah, I don't really care who it is. I wouldn't mind playing Barcelona. I'd like to say Barcelona.
Yeah, it's a bit high up, I thought. The away end.
It might be, yeah, but no, I need the exercise, so I can walk up the steps and that, so that'd be nice. But yeah, I mean, just the thought of having Lionel Messi and Mark Noble on the same pitch is just a dream come true.
Two modern day geniuses, the greatest footballers of the modern age.
It'd be lovely. It'd just be a dream come true.
Don't you think it is actually quite funny that Mark Noble and Lionel Messi are the same age?
Yeah, and same ability. I will point that out. Same ability in their own right.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Tom, who are you having then? Champions League group stage, because we're obviously qualifying. Absolutely no brainer. Just because Timo Werner fell over and tripped one into the goal, we've proven you don't even need a striker anyway. So who are you having Champions League group stage next year?
Listen, mate. Either one team I want a bit of sun for the early fixture. When we head out there, we get a bit of a tan, we get some colour for those 2 days, and then I wouldn't mind an Amsterdam, Ajax sort of vibe, or a Prague. To just get stuck into a decent European city, but I'll take anything. I'll go Legia Warsaw. I'll go wherever it takes. But a bit of sun to kick me off. I need
maybe Porto.
Yeah, we'll have it. We'll have it for sure.
Yeah, Valencia would be pretty good. I don't know how they're getting on in the league at the moment, but all right. Tom's saying anywhere in Spain and Portugal. I don't mind that. That's not too bad at all. I like the idea of Roma, that Olympic stadium. I don't like the idea of getting knives, bottles, cans thrown at you and the mafia controlled police like shepherding you into ambushes left, right and centre. I don't like that idea at all, but the Olympic stadium's quite iconic, isn't it? A few like decent. I remember Man United playing Roma away a lot. I think that'd make for a nice one. I was a bit torn with the German one. I did think Dortmund at first, but I think their atmosphere is pretty good in it. And you think Bayern Munich, similar to what James is saying, watch Craig Dawson have Robert Lewandowski in his pocket for 90 minutes at Bayern Munich away would be quite something to behold, wouldn't it? But lads, look, enough of that. We'll sort out our planning later. I'll do the visas for the three of us. Jonesy, you can sort out the transport, because I know that if it was left to Tom, we'd all be riding there on 3 push bikes, and I'm not going all the way to St. Petersburg on a little tandem bike with one of them sidecars on it with Tom in it. But Jonesy, how are you? Brilliant win against Sheffield United. Thoroughly professional performance. They weren't much of opposition, which was lovely to see. Travelling Blade last week was definitely right, wasn't he, about Sheffield United not very, very good. We'll do it in more detail after the housekeeping in a bit. But how are you? What did you make of it all?
On top of the world, mate. Last season we lose that. I know it feels like we say it every week, but it's those little fixtures against difficult opposition. Do you remember when we used to be in a position we go, right, win that and we go 7th? Like, how good would that be? And then we end up losing it.
I don't even remember that.
Right. I think 3 times this season we've had the opportunity to go 4th if we win, and every time we've done it. West Ham of old would never have won those games. The pressure would have been too much. So yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing. I've got a question for you, mate, actually, and I'm sure we'll go into this a little bit more. But I just want you to rate out of 10 your thoughts on Saeed Benrahma's performance off the bench on Monday night, because his performance off the bench last week in the FA Cup against Old Trafford had you spitting feathers. You were livid, and he was the only one trying to create something. It wasn't his best performance. He's come off the bench against Sheffield United. We're 2-0 up, nothing really to play for. We've got the 3 points already in the bag, and he's turned up. He's got an assist. He's arguably the best player on that pitch for what that final 6.5 minutes that he played. I just want you to I'm just really interested to know how you felt about his performance, because I know you're not his biggest fan.
No, I was just glad to see him save his West Ham career, mate, because it was on, on a knife edge after Old Trafford, as you mentioned there. But yeah, you know, Sheffield United players had all given up. They didn't even want to defend for the 85 minutes before. But no, it was nice to see him do a couple of little step overs in the box and play it to our right back while Sheffield United just stared and watched him smash it in the bottom left corner. But no, I got, I think it was John Goodman on Twitter this week who replied. I did get. I did get a little bit of a couple of kickbacks on the Benrahma points, and I did say at the time that the worst part of my personality comes out when we do podcasts straight after a game. It's never good, certainly for me. It never makes me come off well. Yeah, I think it was John Goodman who said I was harsh on Benrahma, and you know, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but you know, there's a reason that that Moyes left him on the bench to start with, didn't we? I thought Manuel Lanzini performed admirably in his place. Yeah, I thought everyone played really well. Jesse Lingard was fantastic, made up for the there was a bit of concern, wasn't there, at Fulham? You thought, oh, was it just a flash in the pan? But he was absolutely outstanding again. Yeah, I thought all in all, exactly what you said, James. I think the difference is there's a temptation for people to go, oh, Sheffield United were no good. But no, I thought it doesn't matter. You can only beat what's in front of you.
They weren't bad, to be fair. I thought they looked good at times. They weren't the worst team you played this season.
If they didn't have David McGoldrick up front, perhaps it might have been a different story. Yeah. But Tom, look, before we do all that in a bit more detail in a minute, how are you? How's things?
Yeah, all good, mate, as always. Yeah, coming off a win, it's a lovely feeling. And like what you both said, I just think seeing a West Ham team lose a game and actually bounce back and deliver a performance which is up to scratch and shows that we're here to stay, and that was the blip, and we're not going to go through a lull. Maybe we will this season. I'm sure there'll be a period where we do lose 2 or 3 on the bounce, and maybe that's coming up. We've got tough fixtures, but I think the mentality shown throughout the season has been that they're willing to step up, and the standards are very high. And don't know how true this is, and it was Karen on comms who said it, but the fact that when we lost that cup game, that Noble came in and demanded that we got Europe this season and made a big plea to the players that now we're out this cup, we've got to go out there and get Europe. And I hope that is the mentality, because that's what we're seeing on the pitch. So even little things like that give me hope. So yeah, it's a good day, good week, and I'm happy to be doing this, mate.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, Declan Rice's interview after the game was absolutely lovely as well. Just heartwarming stuff. Fell in love with him just that little bit more. But yeah, like you said, Tom, it's that mentality he was talking about, which I liked. But look, we'll do the Sheffield United reaction in a little bit more detail in a minute. Let's just have a bit of housekeeping first. Nice to say hello to you. Make sure that you're both still okay, which you absolutely are. James, I'm loving your jumper this evening as well, as I've already told you off air. But let's do a little bit of housekeeping first of all. Do follow us on Twitter at @WeAreUnderscoreWest Ham, like John Goodman and a couple of others did in the week, and gave me a little bit of stick after last week's show. Always happy to receive that sort of thing of feedback. Get involved with me and the lads on Twitter at @WeAreUnderscoreWest Ham, and we'll get a reply from one of us usually. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, you can watch these shows and some other little bits and pieces that we put up on YouTube. Scroll down to the description of this podcast to find a link to the channel if you want to have a look over there, or on Instagram and stuff as well. But yeah, and do obviously remember to subscribe to the podcast, rate it and review if you can, if you haven't already, and just tell your mates about us if that's okay. If you like what we do, if you like the guests that we have, that's what helps more than any of that other stuff, is just text your mate if they don't already listen and say, have a get your ears around this week. This is outstanding stuff that Will Pugh talks absolute balls about Saeed Benrahma. So look, what's coming up on the show tonight, lads? We promised you a couple of weeks ago that we were going to have Andy Byrne, the spokesperson from Hammers United. Some of you might have heard his interview with Jim White and Simon Jordan on TalkSport a couple of weeks ago, where Andy, by his own admission, didn't have his best afternoons. We'll have him on. He'll be able to clarify that, how Hammers United sit in the Independent Supporters Committee, their stance on GSB out, what they would ask of the new owners, their survey results. They polled fans. Thousands of West Ham fans responded on things that matter to them and Hammers United's future plans. So Andy will be on in part 2. We'll have the Betway charity bets, and what a special guest we've got tonight. I promised it for last week. We couldn't quite nail it down, but this week we are delighted to say that the commentator from the famous West Ham Clips Twitter account, is joining us. We've got an interview with him, and he'll be making a selection for the charity bets ahead of the Tottenham game. It is the big one. We've got the opposition view with Alex Milne, sports journalist from the Daily Mirror and Tottenham fan, will be joining us in part 4 to talk ahead of that big London derby, West Ham v Tottenham, London Stadium, Sunday the 21st of February, midday kickoff. What a game that is. West Ham going into it in great form. Tottenham not so much, but I've still got that horrible nervous feeling in the pit of my stomach, especially with Harry Kane loitering around at the top end of that pitch. Name That Game is back. Thomas Edwards is quizmaster. He's got an impressive lead at the top of the table, 4 points ahead of me and 6 ahead of James, who sits bottom. So there could be a new leader this week. That's Tom, who's in charge of Name That Game there. And we'll wrap up, of course, as we ever do, with West Ham women still 11th in the WSL, lost 1-0 away to Brighton on Wednesday. Where will this next win come from in the WSL for the girls? Laura Vetterlein was the player of the match by far. A couple of chances, but again, West Ham just need to get some points on the board. And then we'll wrap it up briefly with some final thoughts from the lads, as we always do, and say goodbye with the Fantasy Premier League update. So loads to come, as always, on the We Are West Ham podcast. Tom, I'll throw to you first, because I didn't like James calling me out there with that sarcastic question about Saeed Benrahma. Therefore, you can go first this week, mate. Sheffield United, like I said, Travelling Blade was right last week. James is saying they played all right. I didn't think they were much opposition for us at all. It's easy to say it was an almost perfect performance by West Ham, but a clean sheet, 3 goals, you know, it was pretty outstanding, I thought. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly that. And particularly so, yet again, I had my pre-match meltdown when I saw the team come out. I was giving it the one about no seconds.
And post-match, by the way. Post-match, just a general nightmare.
Both come, and then they won't last until the morning when I'm sober. But no, I saw before the game, I looked at that and I thought it just screams, how stupid are we, and how much they're trying to mug the fans off for the whole Antonio thing by keeping it under wraps and not saying anything and just going into games without a striker and not knowing why. I thought it was all stupid, but Moyes got it absolutely spot on. Like the way he got that front 3 and 4 to play was pretty special. I think Lingard was superb, best player on the pitch for the 80 odd minutes he was on. He was giving us all sorts up there. Bowen as well. It just worked really well when we came through a period, like Jonesy said. I think they're a decent side, and we got through a bit of a sticky period where they put a bit of pressure on and we sort of worn it, and then we showed our quality and came through. So I thought a lot of positives, including Ben Johnson, who probably doesn't get the recognition he deserves for how young and how good he's been for us playing an out position. I don't think he's played right back once in his whole West Ham career. So like he's improving it, and each game he plays, he's improving. I think it's another huge positive, and just a win's a win, and we came through it and we looked brilliant.
Don't you find it's one of those funny things, though? You say he's not getting the respect he deserves. At the moment, there's about 10,000 people every day on Twitter going, he's not getting the respect he deserves. But it's like, well, just say it then. Just give him some respect, which is exactly what everyone's doing at the moment. James, just want to read this out quickly. Just shortly before kickoff, after the team was announced. Odd team. Antonio thing is a disgrace. Club too scared to admit he's got a proper injury because they know they've pulled our pants down by not getting a replacement. Suicidal window yet again. Benrahma should never be dropped against a team who'll sit deep. Oh well, Koyi. And before I tell you who that was from, shortly after the end of the game, Tom's got a big grin on his face already. Big win, that superb again from Moyes. Not the first time I've looked at a team Moyes has picked this season and be confused, but yet again he's got it to work. And again for a response to a loss. Quality, love it, West Ham. Get in, class today, absolutely class. The boy Benrahma's a joke. The ability he has is crazy. Fredericks, what a finish. Johnson, Dawson, Lingard, Diop, Cresswell, all of them. Love it, lads. Get so far in, it's a joke. Viva Voice Mondays. That was just, they were 3 tweets in a row of the ramblings of Thomas Edwards. So as much as I want your detailed breakdown of the game, do you think we should stage an intervention for Tom?
No, I'm here for his little ramblings. I actually quite look forward to his little Twitter ramblings on before and after a game. negative or positive. You know, I'm here for all of it. So keep it up, mate. I particularly enjoyed the post-match. It was almost sort of just verbal diarrhea. Anything. I'm just gonna say anything, and it'll be good, and it will show everyone that I'm absolutely. Instead of just going, "Wow, what a win, lads! Great performance." It was, I've got to get every word in. I've got to mention every single player. I've got to. I don't know what I've got to say, but I've got to say it.
All of it matters. That's all I know.
Yeah, all of it matters, and I just need to hammer home the fact that I am a very, very happy man. And yeah, continue doing it, mate. I wish I could. I don't have the creativity to do it myself, so I just want to make sure that you continue that, because I look forward to that just as much as I look forward to West Ham clips commentary after every game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
James, just it's one of those games. I was sort of saying to my dad afterwards, it's like, this is what I said it last week. I think this is what it feels like, or must feel like, to support a team who are pretty good, where you get a win, and rather than it being like absolutely mind blowing that your team's won a game of football and you're like holding on to it desperately because you might know it might not happen for another 2 months. It's like, oh, good. Yeah, should have won that game. Nice professional performance. Nothing massive to talk about afterwards. No real negatives to speak of. The only other talking point, which I'll ask you about now, Jonesy, unless you've got anything other more pressing things you want to get off your chest before we move on to part 2 and speak to Andy from Hammers United, was the Declan Rice, Jesse Lingard comical moment. But even that, like, where West Ham in the past, you'd have had, it brought back memories of Frank Lampard and Paolo Di Canio trying to tear the ball out of each other's hands in a 5-4 win against Bradford. You just had Declan Rice going, actually, the manager said I'm on them. Jesse went, all right. And Declan puts it in the bottom corner. It's like, hang on, where's the drama and the fuss here? Where's the bit that should have gone wrong? Like, I don't know. What did you make of that, the penalty decision in the first place, and just anything else you want to talk about from the game, James? Because as you know, when West Ham win, I feel a bit uncomfortable because we're not really used to it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole penalty thing was weird because we got that penalty before. I mean, it's sod's law, isn't it? We don't get a penalty all season and we get 2 in the space of 10 minutes, but only 1 counts. But Declan Rice was lining himself up for that first one before. Then there was that really weird offside where the frames on the video were probably incorrect. But then we get the second penalty, and then Sonny Lingard's got it, and he seems to think that he's taken it. And I just thought it was a little bit strange, but it was good that there wasn't any.
No, wouldn't you? You think it's up there in the change room?
Hang on. 10 minutes ago, Declan Rice was taking it. So why do you think you're taking it now? But yeah, no, it was good that he kind of backed down. I mean, yeah, go on in, you can have it. To be fair, I was very worried when Declan Rice even just had the ball in his hand for the first one, let alone the second. But yeah, what a penalty! Really, really good penalty. So yeah, it's other than that, I think, as Tom said, just a really, really good performance all round. Good to see us. Every single player on the pitch. I thought Bowen did well up front. Obviously, Moyes was very, very complimentary of him after. In particular, I thought Bowen did very, very well up front. And he's played in that position before, hasn't he? I don't know why we didn't think of him before when he was at Hull. We didn't think, maybe the reason why I didn't buy a striker was because Jarrod Bowen could play there. Maybe it's a master stroke after all. But yeah, good performance. Jesse Lingard was on one, as always. Craig Dawson was a rock at the back, as always. I mean, can I keep going? Tom, you're better at this.
Yeah. He's screwed up. You had it, mate. When it starts coming, you realise, he was good. He was good. He's all right.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I think Fabianski pulled off a couple of worldies as well, which kept us in it. Particularly that one up that it kind of ricocheted off Ben Johnson, and he saw it late. Saved us really, because if they scored out, they're back in it. Because I think it was either 1-0 or 2-0 then. So yeah, match saves from Fabianski, all round good performance. Great to see Ben Rama coming off the bench. Just putting a world class showing off the bench, like he did last week at Old Trafford. Bagged his fifth assist of the season. So yeah, good to see him come off the bench. Lanzini as well on his birthday. Can't believe he's still only 28, by the way. Lanzini. I thought he was older than that. It seems like he's been around for about 20 years. Bless him. But good performance. 3 points.
He peaked
Happy
when he was
days.
about 21, though, didn't he? But yeah, no, exactly that, mate. That was the Tom. You got any talking points? We've got Andy on in a couple of minutes. Yeah, I'll just leave it to you. Really, anything? Do you any other words you want to spit out in no real coherent fashion?
I typed most of them out last night, mate. I may as well pack it in.
You've run out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm out. But the one thing is on the penalty. I thought we haven't had a pen since June. Lingard probably wasn't there when they picked the taker. He's done a lot of work to win it. He probably wants to go. He's probably understandable that he's even gone for it. I saw people having a bit of a crack at him saying it was weird he even wanted it. I don't think it is at all. Like, it shows he wants to score, wants to contribute, bit of responsibility. Like, just a misunderstanding.
He won the pen, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it's a good sign, if anything. I was obviously, when Rice is nicking it off, and I'm thinking, he's never taken one in his career. What's going to happen? Like, is he?
It put more pressure on it, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And fair play to him. That was a sign of, again, a sign of like bollocks. He had a character to do it and take it off Lingard. He could very easily have caved in, but that's clearly why he's captain at such a young age.
Just one quick one. I don't know if either of you thought, I was a bit surprised that Basham, after his hip high karate chop on Lingard, didn't get a red. I know the rule is double jeopardy, and if they make a legitimate play for the ball, then you can't give a penalty and a red, and you can only send them off if it's a deliberate professional foul. I think it was stretching a little bit, wouldn't you say, to say that he was definitely going for the ball?
He took him out. Louise got sent off for accidentally clipping a bloke who literally couldn't score.
Leave that. The Wolves one, you mean?
Yeah, and Basham gets.
That was not an accident, but yeah, I know.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it's a less cynical foul. It's a less cynical foul than that, and he's gone off. And Bednarek, wasn't it, in the same weekend or same week for Southampton? Very similar one to Louise, and they both saw red. So it's a bit of a joke, that whole rule, because how do you even interpret that as a ref? So it's just another football oversight they need to probably correct.
To be honest, mate, I mean, I've just oh, hang on, no, sorry, I have got your tweet, don't worry. This is another one, James, in between all the other rambles. Tom Edwards again, Tom_Edwards on Twitter if anyone wants to follow him. Football rules really are in tatters. Louise gets a red for accidentally clipping the heels of a bloke who had no hope of scoring with his next touch, and Basham stays on for cleaning out Lingard in a one-on-one. Jesus wept. I was absolutely here for that last week. So yeah, follow Tom Tom_Edwards, and he does the O in his name as a 0 if you want to get some of that goodness in your life. But lads, look, wrapped up the nice Sheffield United chat there, and stay with us because we've got some far more serious stuff to talk about with Andy Byrne, Hammers United, who are still very much GSB out, it appears, despite the form on the pitch. So we'll ask him all about that next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. A very upbeat start to the show there. Some enjoyable reaction to Sheffield United. And it is very, very strange to do our match review segments with absolutely nothing to moan about. It makes me feel very uncomfortable hosting this show when it's not just me and James with our head in our hands going, why the hell do we put ourselves through this every single week? But I'm delighted to say that to talk some more serious stuff than Declan Rice and Jesse Lingard arguing over a penalty is Andy Byrne, spokesman for Hammers United. Andy, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Got lots to talk about tonight. I think your first time on the show, which is great. So first of all, great to have you with us. And if you just tell everyone who's listening at home who might not know who Hammers United are, what you do and what you stand for, what can you tell us about that first of all?
Oh, thanks very much for having me on, mate. It's a pleasure to come on. Hammers United is an independent supporters association, and we stand for one simple thing, really, which is to improve things for all West Ham United supporters. Are you
the biggest one, Andy? Am I right in saying that, with the most members?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're approaching 18,000 members now.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, your chairman is Paul Colborne, am I right? Who, again, for anyone who doesn't know, was the guy who, for the infamous Burnley game, was made the stand in the middle of the pitch with the corner flag in the centre circle. Paul feels very strongly about the board in particular, and West Ham and the direction the club has been going, as you know, thousands of other fans do across the spectrum. So just on that, Andy, the first thing, as far as Hammers United go, the main reason we got you on tonight is to chat about the survey results. You've surveyed in excess, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, in excess of 5,000 West Ham fans, I believe, answered your survey about the direction they want to go forward, the club to go forward in a myriad of different issues. But the first thing, we'll get it out of the way, because I know I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. You gave an interview to Talk Sport with Jim White and Simon Jordan, and you got 10 or 15 minutes of time, and we've chatted obviously in the lead up to the show. It wasn't at all how you'd have wanted the call to go. So what were your plans prior to that call? For anyone again who didn't hear it at the time, you got some air to, or you explain to us, you just tell us what happened, what your plans were prior to it. Talk us through it if you can.
Well, I think the first issue there was that I had plans of what I didn't want to say.
Right.
And when you've got plans of what you don't want to say, and you're kind of keeping in the back of your mind so strongly what you're trying to avoid saying, you end up forgetting to focus on what you're actually saying. And so, I mean, there is a little bit of background to it in that we felt we were in a little bit of a difficult position when we were invited on, because of the timing of the invite and what we knew was a potential announcement the next day of the Independent Supporters Committee. We, I'll try and put this across in the most diplomatic way that I can, but we wondered whether there was, whether the timing of the invite wasn't a coincidence. Let's say.
So you got invited, just to clarify, the day before the show, was it?
Yeah, we received a message on the Wednesday evening. There had been a bit of talk on social media that day, I think, following something that Jim White had probably said that morning. And there'd been a bit of talk on social media as to, well, why don't you get Hammers United on to speak? And we received a message that evening to ask us to come on in the morning. And I spoke with a few other people on the committee about whether we should go on or not. And we decided that we had three options. We could either not go on, which we thought probably wouldn't have played out too well, although in hindsight it might have been the most sensible decision. Or we could go on and try and, so to speak, take Jim White on, if you like, and take them on and try and tackle them on some of the issues that we know what their stance is on those issues, and we knew what the response would have been. Or we could go on and try to, if you like, avoid going over those issues and try to talk about something a little bit different, really. In the end, we went with the final option.
And when you say different, sorry to keep interrupting, Andy, I'm just clarifying for anyone who might not have heard it, who's listening right now. You were trying to be careful of not dragging up old ground or repeating the same things, am I right? And that's a lot of the themes of some of the criticism of the interview afterwards was perhaps that was an opportunity to ram home to the 3 million people who listen to TalkSport or whatever, who are listening and think, oh, West Ham fans, why are they bloody moaning while their team's fifth in the league? That perhaps that in fact there were some people who thought that was the chance and to do exactly that, and just ram home that the promises from Upton Park and the world-class stadium for a world-class football, the businesses, the memorial gardens, all those things. There was a feeling that that should have been rammed down their throats, or just not rammed down their throats, but stated in quite a clear fashion to the listeners and to them. So was that something you were wary of doing before? Is that what sort of why?
Yeah, you're 100% correct in what you say, mate, in that was one of our options, and that was something that we considered doing, and it was something that we felt that perhaps we should steer clear of for two reasons. We felt that any point we would make, Jim White and possibly Simon Jordan would already have their mind made up to, in terms of like they would have had a response for it pre-planned. I mean, I actually got a phone call off Jim White, the morning of the show. Before
or after?
Before the show, yeah, about 9 o'clock in the morning. So the presenter called up and he put me on to Jim White, and obviously, Jim White was very friendly, and he essentially what he was trying to do was to get a sense as to what I was going to say when I was on the call, with probably the view to being ready to kind of like come back at anything that I said with his own opinion and with his own data, if you like, and statistics. And we were also very, very conscious of the perception of our group. And I think probably on reflection, it was the wrong audience to try and talk in the way that I did, and to try and address the issues that I was trying to put across, because we were conscious that our group is associated with GSBL, and that is something that we stand very strongly for, and it's something that we that we do lead on. We didn't start it, but it is something that we do lead on. However, with the imminent announcement about the Independent Supporters Committee, we wondered whether it might be an opportunity to try and portray our group in a slightly different light. And then what I mean by that is not one who is shifting their position from GSB out, but one who can be GSB out as well as being forward thinking and proactive. And perhaps talk sport, A, with the people that I was talking to in Jim White and Simon Jordan, and B, with the listeners, and C, with the time that you get, perhaps that is not really the environment to try and have that conversation and to try and talk about what you would like to do with new owners, and how you see yourself as like a forward thinking group who can be just a protest group. So
that's potentially stuff for forums like this almost, isn't it?
Yeah. So on reflection, I think it was completely the wrong approach to the call. However, I do think we were in a bit of a no-win situation. I think the best thing to do probably would have been not to have gone on.
That's the thing. But I know you say that, and because I was listening on the day anyway, I knew the call was coming up, and I was quite looking forward to it, to be honest, as well. But the same things, like I know a lot of fans were obviously listening, and I think I don't agree with you about not going on would have been the best option. Obviously, it was unfortunate the way it turned out, and again, I know I spoke to you in the sort of aftermath, if you like, not straight away. You were sort of more critical of yourself than anyone else, weren't you? So it's not. But as far as not going on, I still disagree with you there, to be quite honest. Even in hindsight, I know it didn't go as you wanted it to, the call or the interview. But I think all you'd have had then is potentially you might have had Jim White on air going, oh, well, we asked these West Ham fans are always moaning, we asked Hammers United to come on today and they turned down our request. So to be honest, mate, the way it ended up going, it's live radio. It almost, like you say, you almost got caught up in trying to not say what you didn't want to say, and at perhaps a time where
I think people are right in that it would have been a good opportunity to clarify
list them,
to clarify why GSB out does exist, and they would have had their answers for it. But essentially, what it comes down to, I think, and people would have seen this. Essentially, what it comes down to is that you can pick away at specifics all you want all day long, and you can say, we don't like them because of this, we don't like them because of that. But really, having conducted the stadium move in the way that they did, and to be honest, having done the stadium move at all, and I mentioned this when I was doing the video with the survey results. We are now in a position at West Ham fans where the trust is gone, and so if you're in a relationship, let's say. And of course, it is a relationship, but even a relationship in more broader terms, where you are the person on the inside of that relationship, and you are saying that, well, this action and this action and this action, I don't trust that. Whereas someone on the outside, like Jim White or Simon Jordan, who hasn't obviously lost the trust for these people because they're friends with them. Simon Jordan is quite outspoken about the fact that he doesn't like the way that they go.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good. Yeah.
But let's say Jim White, he's friends with these people. He's obviously going to look at all of your arguments from the position of someone who's on the outside of that relationship. And he's going to say, well, well, come on, there's another side to this. No, that doesn't mean this. That doesn't mean this. And whatever examples we bring up as West Ham fans, there will be us on the inside who will say, I'm sorry, this is a clear example of why we can't trust these people. And this is a clear example of where we've made up our mind that this decision that they've taken does not have the interests of the fans at heart. And somebody on the other side of the fence, be it Jim White or be it somebody who hasn't lost that trust, will say, well, no, you've got to look at it in another way. It could be this, it could be this. And so I think really at the end of the day, whatever I'd have said, it does come down to that matter of opinion, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
Andy,
I think sorry, James.
Sorry, no, I just want to just on the whole TalkSport thing, and do correct me if I'm wrong on this, but every time I hear any West Ham fan go on to TalkSport, particularly talking about Jim White, I mean, know what side of the fence he's on. It always ends with Jim White getting a hell of a lot of stick from fans going, either you didn't let the person speak, you cut them off early, pushed back on them, belittled them, stuff like that. How long before it gets to the point where we just don't speak to Jim White? Fans just refuse to speak to him because although I mean, I'm not saying completely boycott TalkSport or anything like that, but very rarely when you've got someone like Jim White who is very on that far on that side of the fence, is a conversation about a serious and something that we fans feel very strongly about going to end well, because he's not going to see it from our point of view, whereas someone neutral should do, and he should see it from a neutral point of view. So I'm just wondering are there any plans really to just go not going to speak to Jim White purely because it's a very biased point of view that he has.
Sorry to interrupt, Andy. Sorry. Just quickly, though, I know you're rolling your eyes, James, but what I mean is in that instance, for the purposes of balance, in the instance where Andy called up, he did let you talk, didn't he? For all that time. He wasn't interrupted in that instant. I'm just for fairness and balance. But carry on, Andy.
I think I think it's a very good question you ask, and I think the TalkSport how do I describe it? The TalkSport kind of way of going about things is clear, isn't it? They want to say the most controversial things so that they do get slated afterwards. But essentially what it does is it drives interest in their station.
Yeah, it's drama, isn't it? Yeah, soap opera.
It is. And the Jim White hating West Ham thing and the Jim White being friends with the owners is part of all of that drama. And I think, James, you're right in what you say, in that by going on there, we're playing into that drama and giving them perhaps more, more credit than they deserve by actually going on and having the conversation when really, I'm not going to mention any individuals or names or websites or anything here, but there are other people who would potentially ask us to discuss certain things or provide certain information to them, or other people who might make negative comment about us who we would very strategically decide to ignore and decide not to engage with. I think on this particular occasion, we perhaps wrongly, we felt like we could go on and portray ourselves in a certain way, and perhaps selfishly as Hammers United, we felt like it might benefit us as a group if we could portray ourselves in that certain way. And it didn't work out. And, on reflection, I think it was the wrong approach to take. And I think, there are plenty of facts and figures that we could have put out there that people listening, even no matter what Jim White said, people listening would have said, yeah, do you know what? That is fair enough. The interests on their loans that they take, that isn't fair.
On its own, you're right, so right there. That is one of those things where there's no arguments to it, is there? And I kind of disagree with you, to be honest, Andy, as far as what James was suggesting there about not going on, because I think, well, you can't just boycott these things, because although it is playing into the narrative and the drama of TalkSport, which again they want all that because they want it to be quite soap opera-y, so it drives listeners. But I think if you do that, that's almost like you let them win then. I think even if Jim White's got an answer and all that, I think it's good to, even if you put it out there and Jim White argues, of the 3 million TalkSport listeners, there might be 1.5 million who are listening that morning and going, which they all often are. Well, that Jim White's talking out of his arse. Yeah, why are they taking interest out of their loans? And you know what? Yeah, I support Tottenham and I didn't want to move from White Hart Lane, or I support Arsenal and I wish we were still at Highbury. And yeah, I agree with him about the stadium. All right, Jim White's trying to like talk it away or whatever, but because that's what it all boils down to for me, is that it just feels like a broken promise. There was an implicit contract between the club and West Ham, for us as West Ham fans, when we moved from London Stadium. And it wasn't written down anywhere, I know, but it was implicit, unwritten, but there was an understanding, was we are going to this stadium so the football will be better on the pitch. We're ripping you away from your spiritual home where generations of you have been with your dad and your granddad and your great granddad, whatever, of generations of your family and friends have gone for years. You're losing that, but in return, you're getting something that you've never had before, which is consistent performances on the pitch. When no one's going about trying to make that bit happen in any other walk of life, everything else is built on trades, isn't it? You trade money for services, you trade services for services, whatever, in society. And there was a trade there, wasn't there? That we'll get away from Upton Park, we were losing out, but there would be gain on the pitch. And I think that's what people need to hear who are outside of the loop a bit. But look, I think I really appreciate you coming on and addressing that first of all, Andy, because I know, you were disappointed with the way it went. Lots of fans were, and Hammers United members, no doubt, as well. But we don't want to drag that out all night. We said we'd address it. Tom, you got any more sort of, any of you, sorry, James, and I interrupt you again, but any questions on that before we move on to the next bit?
No, I want to ask Andy a question looking forward, if that's all right.
Yeah, crack on, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, Andy, looking forward. So when we all get back and we're all back in the stadium and we're back out there and it's business as usual. We spoke to a Newcastle fan a couple of months ago who was talking about the fact that West Ham and Newcastle fan groups were going to join together and do kind of a joint protest against the owners, against Mike Ashley and GSB as a pairing. And I was wondering, going forward, what are your sort of plans to put this message across? Because looking at the survey and everything, obviously, we all know I'm GSB out. Majority of fans are, and we all want it. But how are we going to get that message across the way in which it best represents us and it gets us the best deal? How are you looking to do that? Is it things like joining up with Newcastle, or is there anything in the pipe work, or how are you guys looking at it now? I know it's a long way away and we've got a plan for the pandemic and everything, but what are the next steps?
Well, I think the really important thing is the message. That's what that's what you've mentioned that terminology quite a few times in your question, and we've always thought at Hammers United that to affect this change, what we need enough people and enough influential people to run with the messaging that we all understand as West Ham fans. And this kind of comes back to James's question about Talk Sport and whether you should go on. And really the question is, how important do you consider those people to be? So if you consider them to be important, then you would want them as part of a group of people who push your messaging, in which case you would think, yeah, I do want to go on and I want to get my messaging across on that platform. But if you consider them to be I don't know, dispensable could be a word, if you think you can bypass them, then what you need other people to push that messaging. And in specific answer to your question about how you achieve that, we think it's protest, but we also think it's protest that's done in a certain way. So protest whereby what will happen off the back of it is the messaging that you want to be pushed will be pushed, not the messaging about incident that might have occurred on the protest itself, which is quite ironic when we look at what Will said at the start of the conversation, which is who our chairman is. And you look at the so if you take that Burnley protest for an example, the messaging that got pushed off the back of that Burnley protest was all around negativity directed towards West Ham fans and Paul and everyone who congregated in front of the directors, and the mystery coins that were thrown, and and the only thing really that protest achieved, in inverted commas, was destruction across our fan base, and people being destructive towards our fan base from the outside. So we've been really kind of conscious of that when we've planned previous protests, and also when we are now planning future protests, to make sure that we always follow the same kind of principle, if you like. Now, I know it's not a specific answer for you in terms of like, what are we actually going to do? But what I'm saying is that the plans that we have are underpinned by the principle that we want it to be things that will capture people's attention, but not something where the attention is captured for the wrong reasons. Something where people will look at the protest and say, wow, this is being backed in a really, sure way by a lot of people. Let's find out what it's about, rather than, wow, this was an absolute, like, there's all these arrests and violence and all. Right, that's a story that I want to write. So yeah, we have plenty in the pipeline, and this whole COVID situation has been, as it has for everyone, a really strange one for Hammers United, because we felt that when our protests were cut off by COVID, we were really gathering momentum. We had about 2,000 at the first one and about 8,500 at the second one. We were convinced we would have got over 10,000 at the third one. But looking back, it's really interesting how that momentum has continued without physical protest. You look at things like the sale of Grady Diangana, for example, and how momentum kind of continued over social media. And it's also been really interesting in terms of us as a group, the breathing space that has given us from becoming indulged in only protest. Because I'll be honest, around the time when we decided to get involved in protest, we couldn't really do much else. Like, planning those protests was it was like a full-time job. And so what that does is it detracts from anything else that you're doing as a supporter group. And so whilst we were really frustrated that we had that kind of pause button placed on our momentum, it's been interesting for us as a group to spend a lot of time carefully planning what we do next, reflecting on what we've done so far, doing things like the survey to check that we are along the right lines, and working on this independent supporters committee in the background as well.
Andy, just quickly, when you're saying about it, I agree with you. At first, I think that Burnley protest was just an explosion of anger. But I feel like again, that's good. That's like you said, it's going to happen. You're going to have the scenes where it was an angry atmosphere that day, understandably. And I think in a strange way, in life, in any walk of life, there are consequences for actions, aren't there? And I think that was a bit of a consequence for the way that fans are treated. Those scenes, the first ones, the Burnley ones, don't come from nowhere, do they? No one could sit there and go, what are these blokes? What's these blokes' problem? Oh, why are they getting all angry? No one could do that. Everyone knew where it had come from.
If you look at Paul as a microcosm of like perhaps how people were feeling that day and the change that can occur in someone, I think the reason he ran on the pitch that day was because he felt so frustrated that he wasn't able to have his voice heard and he wasn't able to be part of anything. And if you look at him now, obviously, you guys won't know this, but he's in the background for Hammers United. He's very measured and calm, and he's very much like a leadership figure for us in terms of our committee meetings and our strategy and our, do you know what I mean? He's now channeling that same emotion and feelings and frustration in a completely different way because he feels like he's actually part of something.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say to you, was that I feel that the two protests that went on, and you mentioned the last one, it was 8,500. I know the club query that figure, but whatever, if you're an impartial viewer of those scenes, it doesn't matter if Hammers United say 8.5 and West Ham want to say it was 2.5. Either way, it doesn't matter. When you see the images that were in the newspapers and on the television of thousands of people, whether it's 2 or 7, whichever one as a bipartisan you wanted to believe, it doesn't matter. When you watch your match of the day and there's a block of thousands of West Ham fans peacefully walking down the Greenway, my personal opinion is that is the most, the imagery of that hammers home the point. Any of the other external details around it don't matter. It's the video footage on Match of the Day or in the newspapers of blocks of thousands of West Ham fans with banners and all that. And I think what Hammers United seem to have done is they have exactly what you said has happened to Paul. You seem to have channeled the anger that came in Burnley and said to everyone, right, we can't just do that every week because that plays into the hands of the people that your group is trying to protest against. And it's channeled it into a way where everyone was fine doing peaceful protests, weren't they? No one was, well, I don't know, you would know better than me, but you had no trouble at those. And out of that, however many thousands of people were there, that is an impressive feat, isn't it? And I personally would suggest that looking at it from the outside, would be the most like effective way. Do you find that still is the most effective way to jam the point home before we move on?
I think so, mate. I think exactly what you said, that image of thousands of people peacefully going out of their way, changing their match day routine, doing something that's not easy for people, and doing it away from the football as well. So having to commit to it before the game, so to speak. You can't just get involved during the game when you happen to be there. That image is really powerful, and I do think that those well organized, peaceful mass demonstrations are the best way of getting that messaging across. And there are people that will disagree. There are people that will want a more vociferous protest, and there are people who will say you're affecting a team, and at the other end of the spectrum. So we have to listen to opinions, but we are quite kind of confident in ourselves that doing it in the right way in the long run will really help the messaging get out there. And I think the key messaging that we need really is how unhappy West Ham fans are, how much West Ham fans want new ownership, and really off the back of that, how much of a prospect our club would actually be for somebody who was willing to work with supporters. The things that can be fixed are not unfixable, and you could have a genuine big club at West Ham. You really could.
And in terms of things which are probably fixable, the stadium to some degree is one of them. And obviously in your surveys and a lot of what you guys have done based around the stadium, what have you guys in the committee, or what do you think needs to be done to take it to the next level and make it actually more of our home? Is it internal things, external things within the infrastructure of it, or is it the surrounding area? What have you guys been trying to put a focus on, looking at the stadium in particular?
We asked a few questions on that on our survey, actually, a few things about the stadium, and there was a few interesting points that came up. So I think you can split it into things that could be done in the short term to, if you want, to patch it up, to make it a slightly better experience for people. So one of the things that came out really strongly was if you did have some local businesses and local sellers allowed on the island on the way to the stadium, it would make people's match day experience better than having, if you like, the Heineken bar or the Cornish pasty or whatever, the chain sellers. So there are things that fall into that category which can be done with the current stadium, and there's a number of those things. So it might be particular sections within the ground whereby you've got obviously safe standing is not legal at the minute, but perhaps you've got rail seating, and you've got a section that is dedicated for people who want a certain type of experience. Perhaps you could West Ham could employ their own stewards like they did at the bowling grounds. You can do kind of, I'll say, tighten up of the stadium. Do you know what I mean? And you can have as much of your history as you possibly can represented. You can bring some of those things out of storage that are in storage that were kind of kept from the bowling ground. So there are things you can do, but I think fundamentally the issue that we have is that the football stadium is not fit for purpose. It's not a football stadium, and so I think long term, and we do have people looking into this as well, long term, we as a club, I think one way or another, we are going to be in a position where we either need a serious restructuring of the stadium that we don't even own, or a new stadium. And I think that has got to be something that any potential investor understands they may have to make a decision on at some point, I read an article today from 2007 actually about the Icelandics going to look for the new site up at the postal place by West Ham Station, and I think I just don't think in the long term. Now, I don't know how long I'm talking here. I don't know if I'm talking 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I just don't think it's viable for us to be playing at a rented athletic stadium indefinitely. I just can't see how that, you look at other clubs in situations even worse than us, like Coventry, and they don't even, their rented stadium now, they're not even allowed to play in their rented stadium because the rugby club have decided they don't want them there. So they don't even have a stadium. I just don't see it. A stadium is so crucial, isn't it? It's your home essentially, and it's where people go to enjoy their day out, and it needs a complete overhaul, I think, if it's going to be anything like what we had at Upton Park.
So you're still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. We're delighted to say we've got Andy Byrne from Hammers United with us. Already asked him loads of questions. We've got some great insight onto what the group are up to already. So Andy, look, I just want to wrap up that one because obviously we got caught up in tangents. It's brilliant having you on with us to let our listeners know what you're up to and how the ground lies as far as your group is concerned. Just want to, on the GSB out stance. So for anyone who may have been in doubt before about the GSB out stance or whatever, that is still very much Hammers United's stance, and that is led by your members. I know I'm going to ask you about the survey results in a little bit, but just as far as the GSB out goes, what if you can sum up that for us? Is that an immovable position for, I know it seems extremely unlikely now, but I ask for the purpose of balance, because we're obviously having a good season this season, if Gold, Sullivan and Brady started to deliver on those promises that I feel are currently not being fulfilled, I and many others, thousands of others feel are not being fulfilled, having moved to the stadium, but we're having a brilliant season so far. David Moyes looks like a long-term option. Would you give them a chance, or what would that have to look like first? Is that GSB out stance immovable from Hammers United?
Well, I think the first thing to clarify, mate, is exactly what you said at the start, which is that is our stance, and that is led by our members. In terms of if it's immovable, I think you're asking for an opinion, so I can give you my opinion. My opinion is that I would never change my mind, no matter what no matter what happened. Me personally, I'm firmly set up in that camp, and I won't be leaving it for anything. And the survey results were very clear, and it seems a lot of people are quite firmly GSB out. There are questions that come with that, so you've got different degrees of that stance. Certain people would say, well, what do we do then if they do leave, or what if they do this? But if I'm going to kind of make an inference, I guess, from those survey results, I think, and again I'm speaking personally here, really, I think the situation is one where we have lost trust for a group of people, and I'm personally of the opinion that once you lose trust for somebody, you can't get that trust back. I actually think that looking at an endless list of decisions that they have taken at this club, nobody will convince me that those decisions were taken with the best interests of supporters at the heart of them. Nobody will convince me of that, no matter what they say. Take any decision you want, the smallest decision to the biggest. The smallest being the fact that you have to pay £10 to go on the waiting list, yet you can phone your mate up and they can buy you a season ticket. Nobody will convince me that was an accident. I'm firmly of the belief that they told us there were 50,000 people on the waiting list to make us all, pay £10 to go onto this mystery waiting list. And once that trust has gone, any decision that they make in the future, I'm going to approach it in the same way. Whether our membership will ever change their mind is a slightly different question, and one I guess I can't answer. But if our membership did change their mind, of course, we as a group would adopt the position that our membership would want us to adopt.
Yeah, but that just might mean that you have to leave Hammers United. Yeah. No, that's all. Like, because from my stance, I just think there was, like I said, mine is quite a simplistic view of it. Whereas, it's just a straight swap. I was sort of assured that, again, I don't feel like I had much choice in leaving Upton Park. I don't really remember being part of much of a democratic process about whether or not we had a choice to or not. It was, you are leaving, and to soften the blow, we'll assure you the football's better. It is at the moment, but I find it a little bit difficult when people and go, "Oh, you're fourth. What are you moaning about?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, we're fourth for now, but there's every chance that in the Mikel Antonio thing, I still think that on its own, we were chatting about it on the podcast last week, saying it's difficult to moan at those times, but ultimately, it still was worth moaning about the fact that we had bought a striker, because although we're doing well on the pitch at the moment, a normal Premier League club with European ambitions, if they haven't got any fit strikers, buys a striker in January. Chelsea, even Everton, they got like Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin. We've been over this ground before, us lot anyway. But I think ultimately, mine isn't just on the pitch. It just doesn't feel sustainable. That's what I mean. Sorry, mate. Go on.
I was going to say, just quickly, I think we as West Ham fans are realising there is more to it. And even if we were top of the league, I think we'd still be looking at our ground and saying, I can't believe this is where we're playing.
I don't think I would, to be honest. If we were winning the league or not winning the league, but even if we were doing what we're doing at the moment, and I felt it was sustainable and we'd gone out and gone again in January, this just feels like, oh, everything's actually clicked. But it does feel like, but next season we'll drop back down to 10th. It doesn't feel sustainable for me at the moment. But look, lads, you interrupt me like you should be good at this by now. One of you go on.
Yeah, Andy, the survey results are interesting, to say the least. Just a couple of questions for me. I suppose, firstly, it'd be good to sort of get you to sort of sum up sort of three key findings from those results. But I noticed that you had the first ISC meeting with the club. Was it last week? Just wondering whether you're in a position to sort of comment on whether the club have actually responded to those survey results, if they've seen them, and what their thoughts are on it, because it's pretty damning.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can talk about that, and I can talk about kind of a brief summary from our point of view as well. So, I guess key points from our point of view, to try and go through them very quickly, is that there is a stark difference between how people feel about the football and the off the pitch stuff. So, on one side you've got phenomenally positive slant, if you want, towards feelings, in terms of people are feeling great about the football, and then you've got the next slide showing how opposite feelings are when it comes to everything else about the running of the club. So I guess that was the first thing, which is the overall sentiment. Then you've got what people want their short-term priorities to be, and we provided a whole list of things, and people could only select 3. So you couldn't just go in and say, right, I'm going to click for the owners out, and then I'm going to click all the others that I want. So, if you genuinely wanted the owners out, you had to make that one of your things on the list. There's 2 things that we take from that. Firstly, every single thing on the list got some traction, which means there must be people out there who are putting those things in their top 3. So
Can you let us know what the options were, Andy, for anyone listening who hasn't seen the survey?
Yeah, of course. What I would do is I'm just bring this up now on my laptop.
Yeah, go on. Just for if there's anyone at home, obviously 5,000 or whatever answered, but just give us a summary of what the options were for fans.
Yeah, no worries. So you've got a list of things where, like I say, people had to prioritize, and every single thing on that list got traction. So what that tells us is that every single thing on that list is probably not probably, but is definitely worth asking about. I'm just waiting for this to load up. So things on that list, the 3 that got the most traction, or the 3 that were most popular, a campaign for new ownership was number 1, and that was number 1 in the overall results, Hammers United members, and across other FSA affiliated groups, because people could identify in the survey as to whether they were a member of a West Ham United affiliated group, or indeed Hammers United, or indeed they weren't a member of any.
So FSA is just for, that's the Football Supporters Association. Yeah.
Football Supporters Association, yeah.
Cool.
So they have two types of membership. You can be an affiliate or you can be an associate. Essentially, if you're an affiliate, there's more for you to do to maintain that affiliate status. So you have a campaign for change in ownership top, then you have the look and feel of the London Stadium, and then very closely linked to that, you have bringing more local businesses and sellers to the London Stadium. And then you've got a list of 8 others, which were all kind of fairly similar in terms of their level of priority. So a consultation over the crest, transparency of away tickets, affordable mascot packages, subsidised travel for away supporters, process for relocating your season ticket, transparency of the waiting list, the upkeep of the memorial gardens, and improving the stewarding at the London Stadium. And so there, if you like, you've got a list of things which are achievable. So they're things that in the short term, the ISC could ask the club about, and they could be achieved, and people see them. People across the fan base in different numbers and to different degrees see those things as priorities for themselves. And so I guess that leads into kind of the question about the ISC. What we wanted to do as Hammers United in the first instance, so to give you a very brief overview, you have various different FSA affiliate groups coming together to create a supporters committee. And that committee has created a memorandum of understanding, which is, to all intents and purposes, an agreement so that that committee can engage in dialogue with the club.
We had Sue Watson from WHU ISA on a couple of weeks ago, so it gave us a little bit of
I had listened to that. It was a really good breakdown of how it all works. And so the ISC met independently to say, right, okay, what do we want on the agenda for the first meeting? Different groups had different things to bring up, and Hammers United had as our question. We simply went into the meeting to ask, what does the club see as the priorities for addressing the dissatisfaction that exists across the supporter base? So we simply went in to ask that as an open question to get an understanding of what the club priorities would be, rather than, I guess, going in and kind of placing our priorities on the table and saying, look, this is what we think people want. You know, we wanted to go in and ask that question and find out where they were coming from. Now, we have also asked for what's called structured dialogue, which is...
What was the answer to that, Andy? Can you divulge that?
There will be... Okay, so there's a couple of things to say on this. Yes, I can divulge it. I mean, we are an independent supporters group. We don't have to keep anything secret. There will be full minutes coming out where people can read the full conversation that took place. But essentially, the answer to that, in a nutshell, was that they're not ready to comment on that yet. And part of the reason for not being ready to have that conversation yet is that they haven't carried out a full analysis of their survey, and they would like to have a full analysis of their survey done before they enter into that conversation. The rep who was in there for Hammers United did, you will see this play out in the minutes. He did kind of re-ask and try to ask in a different way and try to essentially see if an opinion could be offered. But essentially at this moment in time, it was we're not ready to have that conversation because we don't have the data that we need to have that conversation. So take from that what you will. And what we have done, I think the other thing to mention with regards to the Independent Supporters Committee is we have made a request for what's called a structured dialogue meeting. So in the Memorandum of Understanding, there is an agreement between the Independent Supporters Committee and the club that if any individual member of the committee wishes to hold a structured dialogue meeting with the club, then the club will grant that request. So we are at the minute just waiting for the club to give us the details of when that meeting will take place, and that is where we plan to kind of table our survey results. The last thing to say on the survey is that there were a whole load of questions that I skipped through quite quickly on the video with Gonzo, and those questions were about specifics that are happening at the club and people's opinion on specifics, but they were designed in such a way that we could hopefully take underlying principles from those specifics and use them to underpin a kind of long-term direction rather than a list of things that we could address at the next ISC meeting, so to speak.
Andy, looking well ahead potentially, who knows when, but should we get new owners, which is obviously what Hammers United wants, what's the majority of your survey have asked for, and probably what majority of fans want. But what would you want firstly from prospective owner? Because we've seen that not every owner out there is reliable and dependable, and a lot of clubs have had bad end of a stick when they've sold clubs. So we've got to bear in mind that we aren't just going to sell this and suddenly get someone in there who's going to have the best interests of the club at the heart. Much like these guys, I'm not saying they do either, but it might not necessarily be better. So what is it for you, firstly, which would assure you that they are the right owners for us? And secondly, what can they do is the first few steps sort of thing to propel the club forward to the level that these owners haven't been able to do so? What would you say on those two things?
It's a critical issue, mate. It's like, it's the one thing that we get asked the most, I would say, is there aren't that many supporters who will say they want Gold, Sullivan and Brady to stay, but there are supporters who, in the same breath as saying we want them to leave, will finish that sentence by saying, but we don't know what we're going to get afterwards. And so perhaps, and so it is the biggest question for our group. And I think there are two answers to it. Well, there are three, because one of them is a very short answer, which is it's a gamble. And you basically need someone you can trust. There's nothing we can do about that. So there are two answers to it from our perspective as a group. One is that we would like, or we would hope that prospective owners would take some interest in the club that they're about to buy. And in the interest that they take in the club that they're about to buy, we would hope that they would see a supporters group who are well organised and who have some underlying principles that they think they could work on in the long term with whoever these prospective owners might be. So the role that Hammers United play in that is making sure that these principles are based on the survey. They're well designed. They're kind of forward thinking. They are fixes, if you like. They're not just specific. They're kind of long term. And we would hope in the first instance that a prospective owner would see that and think, oh, right, okay. So I know that if I go to this club, these are the kind of things that those supporters want. So I know that if I'm to succeed at this club, then there's almost like a blueprint there for me. And I can see that the supporters group is well organized. And I can see that if I work with them, I might be able to succeed. So that's kind of the first thing, is portraying ourselves and portraying the work that we do in such a way that a prospective owner would be interested in it. And then I think the second thing is, perhaps once an owner is on board, if they are willing to work closely with you, you've got to not get them, but you've got to make sure that they understand that a prosperous relationship with supporters is, in the cold light of day, a prosperous bank balance for an owner. You can levy the interest and the emotional connection of supporters in the right way, not in the way that Gold, Brady and Sullivan have tried to do it, but you can levy that in the right way, get people on board, make it all about the supporter experience, and actually have part of your brand that you sell your club on, part of your brand can be supporter experience. So part one is, advertising to the owner what we're about and making sure that a prospective owner knows before they buy what will make fans happy. But part two is working with them to say, if you make these decisions, if you base the supporter experience on this, that, the other that the supporters want, your brand will be stronger. And you look at clubs like Dortmund, Liverpool, etc., who part of their branding is their connection with supporters. Hopefully the owner, as the business person that they are, will understand that ends up in more pounds in their pocket at the end of the day. Great.
Well, sorry, mate. People won't be spending about 25 grand a day at M&M Direct as soon as cheap shirts come out for 15 quid.
No, exactly. And it's something that is puzzling, I think, and this is the whole problem with football ownership for me. It's puzzling at first because the owner will quite rightly turn around and say, I'll do whatever I want, and people will still come and buy tickets. But to a certain point, you can't. And, we're getting into the realms now at West Ham where you can't actually do whatever you want. you do have to look after your customers like you would do in any other business. And I think football owners that understand that,
and don't call them customers, isn't it? If
well,
you're Karen Brady,
yeah, but you've got to be pragmatic about it, and you've got to understand that we live in a capitalist society, and one where the Premier League is awash with billions of pounds, and you can't get a supporters, committee taking over the club, or you can't get a genuine fan coming in with a couple of £1 million to take over. You're going to need a ridiculously rich person to come in and to see it as a business venture.
Yeah, Ray Winston and Russell Brand pooling all their cash together is not quite going to cut it. I don't think, is it? But look, Andy, it's been absolutely brilliant. We really appreciate you having us on. It's your first time on the show, but we certainly hope it's not the last. It's been great talking to you, getting some insight into your own things, and appreciate you answering the questions about TalkSport as well. That wasn't no, we weren't comfortable with it, but it's good of you to talk to us about that and all the other stuff going on at Hammers United. Just quickly, I want to hear from you. Just if you can answer 2 questions just to wrap things up. I want to hear your opinion on why you think it is Golden, Sullivan and Brady don't want to sell, whether it's financial. My own personal opinion, as much as the finances, it's just they'll lose their relevance in society and the celebrity and the fame. I think it's a bit of that, and it must be enjoyable as a job, even though there's a lot of hatred from lots of the fans. It must be enjoyable to run a football club every day. And I think as much as anything else, they probably just their day to day would completely change. So I want to hear what your opinion just briefly is on what you think, why they aren't selling up, and what's the future plans? How do you see the future going for West Ham of Hammers United?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess running a football club can be a bit of a plaything for some people, so it must be, it must be interesting.
If you're a billionaire, what else do you do with yourself,
Well, David Sullivan and his son like Championship manager, don't they? So I guess perhaps it's a bit of a real life Championship manager for him. So yeah, there probably is that to it. But in terms of why they're not selling up, I think they've got a very specific plan, and I think it's what they tried to do this with Birmingham. They tried to move Birmingham to a new stadium, a rented stadium, and they tried to do it with an athletics legacy. There's obviously a plan behind this, and I'm convinced that they will sell up as soon as their plan, whatever that plan is, comes to fruition. So I'm not convinced for 1 second that the move to the London Stadium was anything to do with anything other than the plan that they tried to put in place in Birmingham and failed, and the plan that they've now managed to put in place, at West Ham, and it ends with them, I would imagine, making a lot of money. But how that comes about and how that plan ends and what's behind it, I have no idea. But I'm sure when they get the right offer and they feel that their plan is completed, I'm sure that's the day that they will decide to leave.
Excellent. And what's the future hold for Hammers United and for West Ham, but your group in particular?
I think hopefully the future for Hammers United will hold working alongside new owners. In the immediate future, there are 2 very clear priorities, and one of those is to work with the Independent Supporters Committee to make whatever changes we possibly can at the club to make things better for supporters. And alongside that is the number 1 change that people want to be made at the club, which is a change of ownership. And so that means that we must continue to protest. So those 2 things are in our kind of short-term future. But in the long term, I really hope that we're a group that can survive longer than a couple of years, and that can work alongside new ownership and can actually see some real meaningful change for our football club and better days ahead.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll have to let you go now so James Jones can tell me off for talking over him and keep jabbering on for too long. But it's been absolutely brilliant joining you, Andy. And like I say, I do hope it's not the last time. Whatever, any updates for future surveys, things that happen, we're really interested. I know our listeners are, as well as thousands of West Ham fans, both in the UK and around the world, who download this podcast every week, and it's great for them to be out here directly from you what's going on. So do keep in touch with us in future. Hope to have you on again. That's Andy Byrne there, spokesperson for Hammers United. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. Delighted to say that joining us on the We Are West Ham podcast, again, returning guest, Alex Milne, sports journalist from The Mirror and a Tottenham fan for his sins. Alex, great to have you back with us again. And normally going into a West Ham Tottenham game, one of the teams 9th in the league, one of the teams 4th, one of the teams having lost 4 Premier League games from their last 5, and the other team having won 3 and drawn 1. We're used to that sort of thing. The only thing is it's normally that we're the other way round. Tottenham 9th at the moment. I've seen a couple of your meltdowns on Twitter about Spurs. What do you feel more annoyed about, Tottenham's position in the table or West Ham's guaranteed qualification for next season's Champions League?
Well, what a beautiful introduction. Cheers, Pugh. I can safely say this is probably the Spurs-West Ham game I've least looked forward to over the years. And I've got just going into the weekend with a sense of dread, despair, despondency. And I can see from the grin on your face that you feel quite differently. No, I've got to give you boys credit. I was just thinking how quickly things have turned around from even back towards Christmas. We were sort of still fighting near the top. I don't think anyone thought we had a chance of the title or anything, but we were still...
Everyone did.
No, we didn't. Not
everyone was saying it.
Wouldn't go that far. But anyway, things were looking good. Obviously the football wasn't great, but we were still at least, in and amongst the top 4, whatever. West Ham, you're having another one of your boring mid-table seasons, maybe battling against a relegation dogfight, and now I just don't know what's going on. It's all quite depressing, isn't it?
Alex, where's it gone wrong? Everyone's pointing their fingers at Mourinho, but surely there's more to it. It can't just be Mourinho being Mourinho, or is it?
I think if you've seen Spurs even from the end of the start of last season towards the end of the Pochettino era, this is the thing. Everyone's pointing the finger at Mourinho, but we haven't played well for a long, long time, really, and I think. Right now, it's just a culmination of a lot of things coming together. I don't think Mourinho is helping the situation, but I mean, anyone could tell you our back line is just atrocious. You look across anyone, you can look at Lloris, you can look at Dyer, Alderweireld. None of them are good enough anymore, and I think that's where the crux of the matter lies. We saw it in the FA Cup game against Everton, where finally Mourinho kind of let the shackles off and let us have a bit of a go and a bit of attack, and we shipped 5 goals. I mean. It's just, I think that's where we've got to start rebuilding. We know that Mourinho is a defensive manager, but we've got a team that cannot defend. So I'm slightly worried about how we're going to deal with the likes of, Ben Rama, Souček. I think Antonio will be back, I presume, for the weekend. He always scores against Spurs. So, yeah, I mean, it's a complete mix. There's a maelstrom of things going on at the moment at the club. And, kind of want the season to be over now. But who knows? This season, things can change around so quickly. A nice London derby win, and then maybe things will be looking good again, but we'll see.
Alex, one of the things which has been business as usual is Harry Kane. His performances, he's been pretty much unbelievable again. He's put up the same numbers as he always does. I know he's had a few injuries, but looking forward, how long can you expect to keep him? Because he is probably the top 2 or 3 strikers in world football, has been for 2 or 3 years now in terms of his numbers in every metric you look at it. And I know he just became the 2nd top goal scorer at the club and all that, but surely he would want trophies now. And I know you got the League Cup final and all that, but surely he's aiming higher. What's it like in the Tottenham camp? How long do you think that you can keep him? And does he want to stay there long term?
I think it's a very difficult one. I think, as you saw in the Amazon documentary, when Mourinho first came in, he genuinely on board with the idea. Mourinho gave him that pep talk and said, "You're going to explode under me," and to a certain degree, he has. I mean, his stats, as you've touched on, have been sensational. His partnership with Son's been amazing, and in a way, I think he will want to stay, as you said, to break those records. He's so close to becoming, top scorer for Spurs. There's a very good chance he could go on and break Alan Shearer's record. We know he loves stuff like stats. And I mean, I don't know about you. I can't imagine him going to Real Madrid, Barcelona. I just can't see him going to Spain, which leaves the question of who could afford him in England. You could argue City, United, but it would take a hell of a transfer fee. And in these times, I'm not sure if I can see it. So I think if there was a suitable option on the table, he'd definitely consider it. But I just cannot see where that offer is going to come from and who could realistically afford him. Does he want to stay? I honestly don't know. If I was him right now, I'd be getting fed up because I'd be thinking, look, you've promised me trophies, you've promised me progression. I've not seen it. It's not like he's not been loyal. He's been there years and years, and season after season, there's been links and he's stayed. But yeah, it's slightly worrying. But for reasons I've just said, I still think he'll be here next season.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I could only really see him going to Man United. I don't think he suits Liverpool, Manchester City as such, his style of play. Yeah, and I could see United pulling it out of the bag, to be honest. But another man who's come in this season, I remember reading an article or two of yours, and not just yours, to be fair, journalists across the spectrum writing about the homecoming of Gareth Bale and the Welsh wizard returns, etc., etc., etc. It really hasn't turned out very well for him at all. Mourinho's been critical publicly and privately of the winger. Dele Alli's having a bit of a stinker of it at the moment. What do you make of those two players, their situation? Again, same question as was asked earlier. Is it Jose or the players? That seems to be splitting the football world and all the pundits at the moment, whose fault it is. Where do you point the finger of blame with their two situations?
The Bale one is the one that I'm most baffled with. Ali, we saw kind of was regressing, and I think, to be honest, he could do with something like, as we've seen with Lingard, he just needs a fresh start, a little loan away, maybe an opportunity to rediscover his very best form. The Bale one, without sitting on the fence, I think it's a bit of a 50-50 situation here, because he does need to be starting week in, week out. And I think when he gets 10, 15 minutes off the bench now again, he's not the sort of player who can come on and make an impression. He needs to start, 2, 3, 4 consecutive games to get into the swing of things. On the other hand, there have been, rumours that he's not been putting the effort in, that he's kind of treating it as a bit of a holiday, that, if he's got a slight little problem, he won't battle through that and he'll get all worried and go to the medical staff. We saw a situation last weekend was a bit of a farce with his Instagram post that Mourinho didn't seem to take too happily to. So I think there's been a bit of a clash of egos there, a clash of personalities. Ultimately, I think it's going to affect Bale worse because he'll go back to Madrid and that'll prove the end of his career from there. But it's a very frustrating one. And we saw again the other day when he came off the bench against City. It was only one moment, but it was just that little moment of magic where he jinked past 2 players, 3 players, had a shot, which shows he has still got it. And if he gets given a run of games, he might still be able to produce that. But I think he's leaving it too late, to be honest. We got a few months of the season left, and he's yet to be given a real chance. I don't know if he's going to be given the chance to do it now. We're running out of games and competitions, unless he pulls something out of the bag in the Europa League, maybe, or scores a hat-trick against West Ham. I wouldn't say no to that. But yeah, a very, very strange situation and not a very savoury one, really.
Alex, looking ahead to this weekend, normally when West Ham and Spurs meet, whether it's Upton Park or London Stadium, the atmosphere is pretty good. Not going to have it this time for obvious reasons. How do you think this game's going to go with both sides in such different form, but without the atmosphere that this game normally brings in East London? Do you think that might sort of change the dynamic a little bit, or do you think that we're kind of beyond that now, and it's just going to be 2 teams, one in form, one out?
Yeah, I can barely remember what it's like to have fans in, to be honest. And I'm sure the players are used to it now as well. So I'm not sure the fan aspect will necessarily play a part. Obviously, it's still a derby game. I think your boys will be bang up for it, as you always are. The issue for us is, I think, Thursday, but we looked knackered. I'm not making excuses because every team are knackered, but we look knackered against City. We've got a Europa League game on Thursday. I can't see Jose rotating any players for that, really. I think we've got to go all out for Europa League at this point. So I can't see much rotation. I think the likes of Kane, Son are all going to play, and I think they'll be pretty jaded by the time Sunday comes around. And it's just going to be a case of, I think, I don't know, I really hate to say it, I can't see past a West Ham win, honestly. The way you boys are playing compared to the way we're playing, and without the aspect of the fans maybe in the stadium, my prediction, if you were to predict, I'd go for something like a scrappy 1-0 or 2-1 West Ham. But I don't know how you boys think about it, what your predictions are, but I've never been less optimistic about going football in my life.
Yeah, you do seem somewhat glum. That's body language and tone of voice for a man who seems to be
shoulders slumped, looking at the floor. I don't know.
No, I think I'm still a bit nervous, but I think ultimately, like you say, when you've got Kane and Son there, even if you concede two, which is feasible. I saw your tweet comparing Davinson Sanchez to Bambi on ice the other night, which did tickle me. But I think when you've got Kane and Son in your team, as we saw when we played you at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season, you were 3-0 up within, what was it, 21 minutes or something? Just absolutely wang, bang, bang, bang. And I think that can happen, can't it? It's not like when we played Sheffield United the other night. We might be able to dominate possession perhaps, or seem like we're better for 85 minutes of the play, but it only needs to get within a sniff of Kane once. It sounds like a bit age-old cliches that, but he only needs a yard or two. And if they're both playing, they can turn it on, can't they? And so I'm still a little bit nervous. Well, look, Alex has given us his score prediction there. Tom, what's yours for the game?
I think it'll be 1-0. I don't think it'll be. I think we're playing probably better than you think, and I think it'll be close. I think we might just nick it. I think we'll have a set piece will do it. Tom Souček, 1-0.
James?
I'm pretty apprehensive about it, but I always am when we come up against Spurs. In my charity bet, I've got to draw both teams to score, and as much as something in my head going, yeah, this is the best time to play, and we'll get 3 points. I'm just trying to keep my feet on the ground, and it's going to be a draw, very tight affair. 1-1.
Draw. Yeah, James, I know it seems like it seems like I've been copying you a lot in recent times, but I have got a feeling as well. I think Moyes will know that with all the other positives that are going on at the moment, if he comes away from it with a 1-1 and doesn't lose, that's not the end of the world at all. I think it'll be two teams, neither a team wanting the ball, both teams being pragmatic and trying to sit back against another team who's sitting back. And the ball will just be in the centre circle. No one wanted to touch it. Everyone doing that for 90 minutes. We'll see. Well, look, Alex, it's great to join us, even though it was one of the glummest opposition view guests I think we've ever had. And that's saying something, because we had a Sheffield United fan on last week, and even he was more upbeat than you were, I think. But Alex Milne, there, sports journalist from the Daily Mirror and Tottenham fan, thanks very much for joining us. Stay with us, because we've got Name That Game next. So that was Alex Milne there, sports journalist from the Daily Mirror, talking about the West Ham v Spurs game. Huge game that at London Stadium on Sunday, 12 o'clock kickoff. James, I feel like you. I'm just nervous. I don't like it. Last few weeks, I've been quite looking forward to it, and yeah, it'll just if we get a 1-1. I'll be more than happy. But look, one person for whom a draw is not good enough is James Jones at Name That Game. I say it every week. He had a almost insurmountable lead, or so it seemed, when he was sitting pretty on 19 points a few weeks ago, with me and Tom straggling in the early teens. But that has all changed. Thomas Edwards is on a red hot run of form at Name That Game, sits top of the leaderboard on 32 points. I am 4 points behind on 28, and then James just 2 points behind me on 26. For any new listeners, each week the Quizmaster, which this week is Tom, picks a West Ham match from history, collates 7 necessary pieces of information about that game, read them out one at a time, and me and the lads, also the 2 players, which is me and James tonight, jump in at any time and try and guess the next one. For each correct answer, we get a point, which adds on to our total tally overall. I think that is about it. So Thomas, are you ready?
I am ready, lads. Are you ready?
Let's have it.
Yep.
The obscure fact is it was the first time a West Ham United player had ever scored a hat-trick in the Premier League. Any guesses?
I'm going to go 4-1.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Is it 4-3?
No.
Oh.
It's correct.
I've got it then.
You got it. The correct scoreline is West Ham United. Well, it's 3-0. So West Ham United 3-0.
Right.
No,
so
I haven't got it.
What's the? Have you got an alternate piece of information for the opposition goal scorer, Tom?
One of them will be 2 people got an assist in the game. If you can name one of them, which you may be easier done later on. But if you can name one of them for the duration of this, then I'll give you the extra point.
Okay. Paul Kitson.
Incorrect.
Oh,
Tony Cottee.
Are you saying Tony Cottee? Is this no assist from Tony Cottee?
all right. I'll go West Ham goal scorer. Tony Cottee.
Tony Cottee is correct.
Wait, that's what I meant.
Oh, so I think he did. I think
We were answering assists. What is going on here?
No,
Why does this always happen?
Tom, you said if you can, you might want to answer it later down. If you can get assists later down the line, I'll give you the point.
I did say that. So if Jonesy was answering the goals, I have the game ahead.
So I've said Tony Cottee as goal scorer.
I was guessing assists. I swear on my life, I was actually guessing assists. But I tell you what, James, I will let you have it because I was thinking it was John Hartson anyway. So a bit of honesty here. I don't want another controversy involving James Jones. He does not like being at the bottom of the table.
I will say the game's over your faces whilst I'm just taking a look at the facts of it. So I didn't see Jonesy light up, but I did think that's fair enough because I did say maybe it'll be easier after we answer the question. So I will give that to Jonesy.
Joking. I've been well and truly stitched up here. Right. Okay. Well, can I go next then, James,
Yes,
to balance this out? All right. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm going to go Upton Park.
That is correct. That's a point in the bank. Opponent.
Oh, blimey.
Who wants to go first on this?
It's James's go.
Come on, him.
I'm trying to think back. Nah. This is a complete stab in the dark. I'm going to say Sheffield Wednesday.
It is not Sheffield Wednesday.
That made me my stomach flutter then. I thought you got that right. I'm going to say Tottenham?
Incorrect. I like where your head's at. I think maybe it's... Can I give a clue? There's not much clue I can give without giving
you tell us who the opponent is now, don't you?
Yeah, the opponent was Man City. It was a 3-0 win against Man City. And then the season to take it.
You going first, James?
Yeah.
I'm going to cry if you get it right.
Is it 94, 95?
It is 94, 95.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so annoying.
Quality that. Sorry, it's a bit of an obscure one. I had no clue, but it was one of those stats I actually saw in the week. Someone tweet, and I just sort of stored it.
So can we just have for a bonus points here, James? Can we go back and guess who we think were doing the assists or what?
Yeah, I think.
Or just for good measure.
We have one guess each.
Yeah. Can I go first?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, you're up, Will.
I'll go Ian Bishop.
Correct. Yeah, in the 57th minute.
Oh, what a legend. The long flowing hair behind his absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? Is there another point for James to be had here?
There is another point. There's one more assist. So only 2 of Tony's goals were actually assisted by anyone. And obviously Ian Bishop's one. And there's a goal assist in the 10th minute by who, Jonesy?
Martin Allen.
It's a good effort, but it was Tim Breaker.
Tim Breaker. Doing his best Vladimir Kufal impression back in 94. Legendary stuff. That's a great game there, Tom. I like that. 3-0 to West Ham against Manchester City at home. Yeah. I was thinking it might have been from the old 94-95 cassette video season review that I had that I used to watch and repeat when I was a little kid. But Tom, that makes the scores a little bit closer. So you've got me on 30 points after that. James Jones up to 28. You are still out in the lead with 2, but your lead has been narrowed to just 2 points now. Good stuff. I am in the hot seat next week. So James, a chance for you to move off the bottom if you get more than 2 points. And Tom, chance for you to increase your lead over me. So that will be this time next week. Stay with us because we're nearly done on the We Are West Ham podcast, and it's the West Ham women's section next. So, name that game. They're dramatic scenes once again. I know what you're thinking at home. Why is James Jones always involved in controversy when it comes to name that game? Every single week, it seems. I know how you feel. Imagine being the one who has to host the podcast. Poor old Tom's done his best there on the quiz, and James Jones absolutely nosing it up for the rest of us. He is not happy, but 2 points apiece. Great bit of reminiscing there. Back to 94, 95. Tom was about minus 11 years old at that stage, I believe. I don't know where we were in the league that season, Tom, but the West Ham women, they are 11th in the WSL, and it seems like we're having the same conversation every week, lads. Just 2 points off the bottom. Bristol City were hammered 5-0 by Chelsea, which was kind of an expected result. But the girls lost 1-0 away to Brighton last Wednesday, the day after last week's show. So it might seem like a while now. But again, it was, you watch the results and sounds like a broken record. Eileen Whelan's goal on half an hour was from a corner. We're talking about Maz Pacheco again. It was just poor marking from the left back to let Whelan nip in front of her to stab the ball home. Seems like we're talking about problems in that left back position week in, week out. There was an outstanding save by Mackenzie Arnold in the West Ham goal while it was still 0-0. Laura Vetterlein had one cleared off for West Ham as well, with the scores still level or still goalless. Vetterlein hit the bar with a free kick at 1-0, and then was back making last-ditch challenges when Brighton were through to make it 2. She was by far West Ham's best player. But James, I mean, push for an equaliser at the end, but it doesn't matter. There's no points again against the team in a game where we were saying before it's must win. How long do we keep saying these games are must win?
Well, it's only so. I mean, although the performance wasn't the worst, at the end of the day, it's goals that will end up winning football matches. And you know how much I love a cliche, but there's no other better cliche to describe the situation at the moment. The performances haven't been bad under Ollie Harder. It's just that they're struggling to get the goals and to get the wins. And at the moment, we're now almost relying on Bristol City to continue losing just to ensure our WSL status, and that's not a healthy position to be in. Vetterlein looks like she could be, the danger and the player that everyone's going to be looking to get us out of the situation. But you can't rely on one player to be doing it all. So it's a precarious situation. But again, one win, does it lift the team? They had the win in the cup, and then everyone thought, right, that's it. They'll push on. They haven't pushed on. So yeah, it's a difficult situation. But I don't know how many more must-win games they can get. And next up's Chelsea at the top of the league, so it doesn't get any easier.
Well, that's the thing, Tom. I was just going to say that there. Chelsea at home, Sunday, the 7th of March. That is 3:00 kickoff. They hammered Bristol City at the week. Obviously, they lost to Brighton a couple of weeks ago, which was pretty historic. They're unlikely to do that again in a hurry, especially against a team who's doing what West Ham are doing at the moment. I mean, at the risk of us all sounding like broken records here, what else is there? What else is there to say, really? What else can you say? Because that was as much of a must-win game as there could really be, and we didn't win it.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's a bit like lockdown. It's just Groundhog Day with the girls at the minute, and it's a shame. And as much as Jonesy's right, the performances haven't been terrible under Ollie Harder. The worry's got to be there that he hasn't picked up the points. They haven't been getting what they need in order to preserve their WSL status. They've lost a few key figures in that dressing room, particularly Alicia Lehman, who's obviously been there for a few years now. Obviously, there's reason to let her go. But clearly that squad had a bit of a breakdown in the last management and everything that happened and transcribed since then. So it's a difficult period for the club. And Ollie Harder, you expect to come in there with a bit of a new manager bounce and get a few points and get a few results. And yes, he had that win in the quarterfinal of the cup, and that's it. And we haven't seen anything else. So I think the girls may well be questioning him. The whole club might not be in the best possible place at the minute, but it does just take one thing to change and go right. It won't be this weekend against Chelsea. They'll probably be on the end of a stuffing, to be honest, as they have been doing all season, Chelsea. So it's going to be another week where the girls are going to have to show some mental grit and come out the other end, because Chelsea's unlikely. But then again, we're only a couple of results away from Bristol City getting ahead of us, and it's very tight down there. But we just need something to move in the right direction, because it's been a poor start for Ollie and the girls, and who knows what's going to happen from here.
Well, Bristol City have got Reading at home this week, which is a winnable game for them. You would expect West Ham to lose. Obviously, we have played one more game than Bristol City. West Ham have played 13, Bristol on 14, West Ham on 8 points, Bristol on 6. But Villa, who are one place above us, have played one game less and got 2 points more. Birmingham City have played 2 games less than West Ham and got 3 points more, who are in the place above Villa. I can't see us finishing any higher than sort of 10th place come the end of the season, to be quite honest. The 22 games to play, we've played 13 so far. 9 games left is still, a significant amount of the campaign left, but there is really not a lot at the moment to pull some positives from. On the flip side, that could have easily been, with the chances they had at the weekend, that could have been a 2-1 game to West Ham, albeit it could also have been a 4-0 or a 4-1 to Brighton. But it really needs to be a by hook or by crook. I think we're all writing off the Chelsea game, and that's not unnecessary pessimism, but not good stuff for the girls at the moment. And it's just one of those situations where you just hope there's a magic rabbit to be pulled out of a magic hat somewhere, or whatever that phrase is. But that's Chelsea at home. Nonetheless, will be well behind the girls on Sunday. Chelsea at home, 3:00 kick-off, and then it's Birmingham at home, Manchester United away, Reading away, and Villa at home are the games to follow. That takes us up to the 20th of April. So some winnable ones in there. Just got to hope that the girls find something at the weekend that they can cling on to and take into a positive into their next game. But stay with us, because that is pretty much it from the We Are West Ham show tonight. We'll have some brief Fantasy Premier League update and some final thoughts from the lads next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. It's been a packed show tonight. Andy Byrne from Hammers United we've had on. We've had the commentator from West Ham Clips for the Betway Charity Bet section. We've had Alex Milne, sports journalist and Tottenham fan from the Daily Mirror. We've packed loads in. It's been a great one. Just quickly before we go, we're still in the middle of a Fantasy Premier League game week, lads. I'm currently on 78 points with Edison, John Stones, Phil Foden, Ashley Barnes and Ben Mee still to play, but Ben Mee got injured, stretched off the other day, so I don't think he's going to play. I don't know how you both are doing quickly. Jonesy, do you know how you're getting on?
Yeah, I'm on 83. Thanks to Captain Gundogan, didn't I? But I've also got Ben Mee. I had Diaz in the team. He didn't play the first game for City, but should play on Wednesday night. So I've got Luca Digne as well. So I've got Watkins coming off the bench as well for 2 points in place of Antonio. So I'm doing all right this week. Catching you up.
Tom absolutely floundering, 46 points I see. Mendy in goal, who didn't play, and Nyland, your sub goalie, is not going to play either. So that'll be a blank for your keeper. Did you just give up this week?
I don't know who I hate more, Tuchel or Frank Lampard, to be honest with you, because the absolute state of him. What is he on about? But not my best week. I went for a bit of a rogue one with captaining Foden, trying to steal some points back of people who may well be ahead of me, because it could have gone my way. But one of those weeks, but last few I've been moving in the right direction, and so no time for stress and panic. And I've got 4 or 5 left to come out, and Lookman's going to get a hat-trick anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I'd be stressing and panicking if I was you, that is for sure. Well, look, James, Tom, we've got 4 minutes left. Been a great show so far. Just get some final thoughts from you both before we say goodbye. Jonesy.
I mean, again, it's another thing I feel like we say it every week, but the next couple of fixtures are massive for us now, with Spurs and City coming up. We've only got, 2 points off of top 6 opposition this season. So, if we are serious top 4 contenders, then these are the 2 games, I think, or maybe City. it's going to be a little bit of an ask. But this Spurs game, I know I'm apprehensive about the result, but if we can get a result here, that really it will be a statement to the rest of the top six. So it'll be interesting to see how we handle it. But yeah, as far as the season so far goes, like, I'm just buzzing. Absolutely massive, haven't we, boys? And whatever happens between now and May, it's been fun. It's been fun so far. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, fingers crossed we carry this momentum and finish the season strongly. Tom, final thoughts. Good show tonight. Good guests. Good week again for West Ham. Big game against Tottenham on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Loved it as always again this week. And yeah, that's it. I think each week it actually gets harder to watch, not because of any fault of the boys, but just the more and more becomes on the line. 14 games. They showed a graphic at the end of the game, the table, and you think it's actually 14 games left. That's really not that many. By a few results and you're well amongst it. So keep grinding it out. I think, like we said earlier on when we spoke to Milne, this is as good as a chance we'll get to beat Tottenham. We've got City after it, which probably makes it even a bit more important because we're not going to win against City and the table's so close now. So you don't know how it's going to change in those 2 weeks, but we're playing well. There's no reason why we can't get results in both games. And yeah, it is an absolute well whilst it's going on. So fingers crossed we're still here in a few more weeks because it's pretty fun being up there in the European spots.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, just a reminder, do follow us on Twitter at @WeAreWest Ham. We're on Instagram as well. And go and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you fancy it. We'll have the full extended version of that interview with Andy Byrne from Hammers United up on YouTube within the next day or so. If you want to get a bit more detail from Andy on that, we'll also have some other exclusive content that goes on there. So do subscribe. The link to the YouTube channel is in the podcast description below. So definitely go over there. And like I say, at @WeAre_West Ham. Do give us a review. We haven't pushed that for a couple of weeks. So if you fancy feeling nice, you've got nothing to do because it's locked down, go over to iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to the podcast, give us 5 stars, write some nice words. That'd be lovely. And like we always say, just tell your mates about us. If you know any Hammers and they like podcasts, or even if they don't, tell them about it, get them listening. And yeah, we'll add another listener to the pile of you that we already absolutely love, each and every one of you. So that is it for this week. Declan stayed Rice cool from the spot against the Blades, and it's Tottenham on Sunday. No clever words. It's the big one. Absolutely huge. North Londoners against the East Londoners. Massive London derby. They care just as much as we do. Thanks for listening, everyone. Up the faith. Come on, you Irons. Up the Hammers. We'll see you next week.